All right, so from the Discord from Peekaboo Sue. Also, link in the description box down below for Discord, or I can put it in the chat or something like that. But that being said, from Peekaboo Sue on the Discord. The most effed up interrogation ever caught on tape. Mature audiences only. I think I might have seen this one before, but I'm not exactly sure. It's around the same timeline, right? I had the 7th channel around that time ago. So, okay, well, anyway, you're here. I'm here. Let's jump in.
At the end of today's story, a lot of you are going to be shaking your head, wondering how in the world could they have missed that. But before we get into today's story...
Oh, wait, I gotta do the ritual. Since my fellow retired operator is doing the reverse cap, I'll do the reverse cap too. Social conformity and all that. Anyway, now we're ready. Quit sending me messages. I don't care. All right, let's jam.
If you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place because that's all we do, and we upload 2 or 3 times every week.
Also, I don't know if I told you this, or if I told someone else this. He and I served in Afghanistan at the same time. We did a lot of the same stuff too. It was quite hilarious. Who would have thunk?
So if that's of interest to you, please offer to make the like button a sandwich of their choosing, but when you build it, make it between 2 very thin, stale rye bread heels. Also, please... 2 very thin, stale rye bread heels. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads.
I don't know. Rye bread is pretty good for certain types of things. I don't know if that would actually be something that would be much of a being a nuisance or something to the like button. I'm not sure. But sheep, sure. Absolutely. I like to think of us more as like actually like mountain goats. You know? Right? The sheep stay in the valley because they can't climb the mountains. But we can climb the mountains, so we're the mountain goats. You know what I mean? Well, anyway, let's keep going. Plus, we can like fight things. Sheep can't. Okay.
All right, let's get into today's story. In 2000.
Still love MrBallen's intro.
In 2006, Heather Kwan was a 21-year-old college student living in the small residential town of Desert Hills in Arizona. From a very young age, Heather was someone who always seemed to give her friendship to the people who needed it the most, people who were hurting on the inside or who society had kind of forgotten about. This is why when she was a teenager and a young adult, she would often spend her weekends volunteering her time with underprivileged children.
Well, that's what a ram is. It's a mountain goat that's male with the horns. So yeah, they're the ones that do the ram. They're called a ram because of that. But yeah, basically same thing. Same thing. Basically the same thing.
It's also why she aspired to go to law school and become a defense lawyer, because she loved the idea of professionally helping people that desperately needed her help. She lived in a rental home with her boyfriend, who was 18 years old. His name was Ryan Waller, and amongst other things, he was a huge gun enthusiast and a student. That year, the couple had made plans to visit Ryan's father, Don, on Christmas Day, so on December 25th. But when the day came and Don had made dinner for the couple and was expecting them, they didn't show up. And so Don tried contacting both of them, but when he couldn't, he just had a bad feeling that something was off. It was just very uncharacteristic of them to just no-show. But instead...
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Doesn't someone get like shot to death or something in this one and somebody else doesn't notice? Or they can't notice or something like that? There's something weird that goes on. And there's like a third party involved, I think. Well, third and fourth party essentially. Maybe. I don't know. We're gonna find out though. Why is it not? There we go.
Instead of driving over to their property himself, Don just called the local police and asked them to do a welfare check. The police arrived at the house in Desert Hills, Arizona. They knocked on the door, but there was no answer. They looked in the windows and some lights were on, but it was mostly dark inside, and they couldn't really tell from the car in the driveway if that belonged to the homeowners or somebody else. And so they stood there for a second. They're looking in the windows. There's no movement. They knock again while simultaneously calling out that, hey, we're the police. We're here to do a welfare check. Just want to make sure you guys are okay. And this time, after they were done knocking, they heard the deadbolt unlock and then the door swung inward into the house. And standing right in front of them was Ryan. Ryan had this huge bruise on his left eye, this big black eye, and he had a cut on his nose. And he was just standing there, not saying anything, not asking any questions, just looking at them. And they looked past Ryan into his house and they saw there was a woman lying on the couch, which they presumed was his girlfriend Heather, because that was the two people they were coming to look for. And so they turned their attention back to Ryan and they asked him, what happened to your eye? And Ryan was a little bit cagey. He didn't really give them a straight answer. He basically said, I don't know. I don't know what happened to my eye. And, the police didn't really pry that much, but eventually they determined that Ryan was more or less okay, albeit a little bit strange. And then they said, okay, well, who's the woman who's lying on the couch? Is that Heather? And Ryan, again, was kind of cagey and a little bit dismissive and said something along the lines of, she's just sleeping. And so the police said to him, look, we're here on a welfare check. Your father sent us here to check on you guys. And so we have to go in there and wake her up and make sure she's okay.
Oh no, she's dead. Yeah, she's dead. I'm pretty sure of that. I think she's the one that got shot to death. I'm pretty sure he got wounded. Or at least I think he got wounded because he's got a bruise on his face. I think he got wounded somehow. Shrapnel or something. Or like, he got shot too. Something like that. Well, anyway, I guess we'll find out. Oops, yeah, they think he is the killer. Oh, well, I surmised that much, but that didn't come from memory. Hey, if you've already read through this and you remember what happens, you don't have to read. I can give you a music video to read to instead of another. Well, we can't do copyright material live. They'll shut the live stream off. That's why I got to do everything else as an upload or a recording. But yeah, no, let's continue. Might as well, right? We're already here. I'm fulfilling your request. I get to do what I'm requested to do, and we get to have a good time. Yeah, let's keep on keeping on. Besides, I don't even have it here. I don't have it on the channel yet.
And so Ryan, again, was just a little bit weird and kind of defensive and didn't really immediately comply, but eventually did step out of the way. And the police walked into the residence. They walked over to the couch. And as soon as they looked down at the girl on the couch, which was Heather, they saw right away that she was not asleep. She was dead. And she had been for at least a couple of days. She had died from a single gunshot wound to the head. Immediately, Ryan was arrested and brought out to a squad car. He didn't fight the arrest, but he did emphatically say he didn't know what was going on. He didn't understand what was happening. He didn't know what happened to Heather. He just seemed kind of generally confused. But regardless, he was thrown in the back of the police car outside the property, and he would sit there for several hours while more and more police and paramedics arrived to process the crime scene and also to transfer Heather's body to a morgue. Finally, around 5 a.m.,
The poor guy is honestly confused, is what it sounds like. It sounds like because here's the thing, right? Take it from someone who's had way too many MTBIs. In fact, I should not have survived half the shit that, I've been through. Now, I'm not perfectly unscathed, right? Like I've had multiple. They're called MTBIs, but it's traumatic brain injury. I've had a lot of them. Been blown up a lot. Flew over a building one time. That wasn't fun. Well, okay, technically flew into building, but still, I mean, I like to imagine I flew farther than I did. I think. I think I did. That's what I've convinced myself of. I'm like, man, it'd be lame if I only went like 50 feet from that big explosion and then hit the building with my noggin. I mean, that's that's how I think of these things. But anyway, besides me, right? Like I have experience with this directly. This guy's got some extreme, like damage to his brain in some way, shape, or form. I think maybe. Maybe he got shot. It's possible. Or maybe he took shrapnel, or he got banged around real hard, like someone smashed his skull with a shotgun. That might do it. I mean, I've had near misses from RPGs, and that was enough to make like sounds hurt. Even though I knew the guys needed to yell at me to get me to hear them, because they've been through the same shit. But sounds hurt, like light is blinding. And then there's other stuff like candles, and then it sounds like there's a whining sound from the other side of the freaking veil in your skull forever. And in some instances there's confusion, like when I got up, you know from when I got blown out my turret, and all I had was my sidearm because I was a gunner, so my gun stayed with the truck. Thankfully it did. But I didn't. My GRS, my gunner's restraint system, failed. The clip sheared, and I went whoo, and it was like, oh fuck, you know. But I hit a building like with my head. How I know? Because my helmet was gone when I hit the ground. Um, but yeah, so I got knocked real good. We're deep. We're deep in the city at this point, and it's full of freaking insurgents. But yeah, and so I get up. All I have is my sidearm, and so I get up. The rest of the convoy's like on the other side of this block of like buildings I've flown into or at or whatever, and I start heading to try to find the guys. I was so confused. I don't remember that period. I know I got up and I grabbed my sidearm in case I needed to use it, but that was all I remembered from that part till I got like back to the convoy, till I got back to our trucks. But it was someone else's medic that started trying to treat me. I guess he was bored or something. I don't know. And then I felt like they were like, "Hey, like your guys are up front." I was like, "Yeah." Oh, front is wait, it's that way. Okay, and like I was a confused mess. But yeah. Anyway, uh, wow. So do you consider yourself lucky or unlucky? I honestly don't even know. It feels like a blessing and a curse. Cause like, well, trying not to get too far off on the tangent, but I survived stuff almost everyone else never did, except for like one or two people. And I came out of that shit like with just a rung bell and maybe some bumps and bruises, or barely even a scar, because I got a little scar under my eye right here, little tiny thing. Because some guy was like trying to shoot at us from like up top, and we're on this side of the building, and he's like up and over there. And so we gotta figure entry into the next building over. And I like tried to peek, and just he just let rounds rip through that little corner, and just it hit my eye pro, and then hit something else, and then kept going. I got lucky. I didn't lose my face that day. Oh shit. But yeah, you know, uh, anyway, um, try not to get too far off on the tangent, but I know a thing or two about TBI, okay? And and it sounds like confusion after having a TBI. It sounds like that period after you just had your bell rung hard. And you're just like, what? I swear to God, that's what it seems like. Poor guy.
On December 26th, the police brought Ryan, who was still in the back of this police car, to the Phoenix police station for questioning. The interrogation that followed, this hour-long interrogation that was all filmed, would start off relatively normally, but it would quickly devolve into this totally bizarre back and forth between Ryan and the detective who was questioning him. And then at the end of the interrogation, there would be this stunning revelation. From this point until the end of today's video, we're going to be showing you clips from the actual interrogation.
Oh, Lord. Man, it's going to be painful to watch. I don't have a problem if it's like a criminal or like a terrorist or just a bad person. Like if it's a bad person, I don't care. It's actually quite enjoyable when I see stuff happen to them. I've gotten to do some of it, so it was a good time. But when it comes to like someone like this, like an innocent, it's like, shit, dude. It sucks. Even though, you'd think I'd be numb to these things. It still gets to me a bit. Peekaboo Sue. Well, you are a very intelligent man. I enjoy hearing you talk. Very interesting. Well, gracias. Mucho gusto. Bienvenido a mi channel.
When you get to the end,
I appreciate it, basically. That's what I was saying. But I think I screwed up something with a greeting. I don't know.
Of this video and you hear the revelation, and trust me, you will not miss it, I would encourage you to then go back and watch the clips of the interrogation, or just go online and watch the entire interrogation, because it's totally mind-blowing watching this thing, knowing what's really going on. In the video, Ryan is led into this sort of nondescript, small interrogation room at 5:08 a.m. on December 26th. So he's just arrived at the station, they put him in this room, he's wearing this white jumpsuit that might have been issued by police. Maybe he owned it, but it definitely looks more like prison attire. He's got no shoes on, no socks on, and his hands are not cuffed. And so he walks into the room and he sits down in the chair that's in the back corner of the interrogation room. And this chair is right next to this table. And then on the other side of this table is another chair. And so Ryan sits down in the corner. He's kind of facing out towards the middle of the room. He's quiet. He's basically not moving. And then at some point, he notices there is a handcuff that's connected to this table. Now, in some cases, the police would handcuff the person they were interviewing in this room. But in this case, Ryan was not told that he needed to put this handcuff on. He was uncuffed. So there was no directive that he needed to have this handcuff on. After handcuffing himself,
Damn it. Yeah, I can see it. I can see, because you see where that part of his nose is? Looks like something entered there. I think he got shot in the face with some. I don't know. Couldn't have been 9 mil. I don't think it could have been 9 mil. Because 9 mil would do a lot more damage, even if it's just FMJ. Maybe a 22. See, this is like the reason why. Okay, there's a few missions I've done where we had to go retrieve somebody, and we could not allow them to be damaged to the point where they could become useless or rendered useless. So everybody had all the extra medical shit with them, right? Beyond the norm, because we already carry like tourniquets and we carry IFAKs for ourselves, which are like our emergency pouches, like our emergency medical kit stuff. But you know what? Like Doc would bring an extra bag just in case. But we would be, told in no uncertain terms, like we can't be rough with them. Why? Well, if you're like trying to chuck a dude around and you smash his head into a wall, Well, for all you know, you've either concussed him or killed him. And we had that happen one time, unfortunately, which sucked, but there wasn't much we could do about it. But yeah, so any type of damage to the skull, like any, even bare facial injury, like paranoia, needs to be had with it because it is all too easy to, unfortunately, impact the brain. So yeah, like Peekaboo Sue. I can't believe with that big of a black eye they didn't get him any medical care. Yeah, that's where I started. Okay. Yeah, no, like then again, you gotta think. You gotta think. These guys have been doing this job for years. They've lost a lot of their heart, most likely. Right? They've grown hardened by this job, this work, and they're seeing some, punk kid who's seemingly acting with attitude. He's a little off. He's a little strange, but they're looking at him like a criminal first. Makes sense that they're not really paying much attention to things. Now, is it good or bad? Well, who's to say? In my estimation, I always try to fight against complacency, but it's hard. It's tough. It's like driving all the time. You get used to it, you just do it, it becomes automatic, you become accustomed to it. Sensory adaptation happens. Next thing you know, it's just an automatic thing you do and forget about for the rest of the day is driving. Pigabusu, FMJ, Full Metal Jacket, right? Yeah, Full Metal Jacket. Yeah. Well, anyway, let's continue.
After handcuffing himself to this table, Ryan turns and puts his arms over this table and he lays down, puts his head in his arms, and he lays that way for about 5 minutes. Periodically, he makes a few groaning sounds, but for the most part, he's quiet. And then all of a sudden, as he's laying there, he suddenly makes a fairly loud moaning sound and he stands up in his chair like he's gonna walk out of the room, but as soon as he starts to walk away, the handcuff stops him. The handcuff that he was not told to put on. And so he's stuck against this table, but he doesn't seem fazed by it. He looks almost confused by what's happening, but he doesn't dwell on it for very long. Instead, he just reaches across the table and grabs a blank piece of paper, and then he just sits back down in the seat, he crosses his legs, and he starts looking at this piece of paper. At 5:17 a.m., so
Oh, this poor kid. His brain's probably dying. Most likely he's got cranial. He's most likely got brain hemorrhaging. Oh, dude, poor guy.
roughly 9 minutes into this interrogation, which really hasn't even started yet, Ryan is intently looking at this blank piece of paper when a detective walks into the interrogation room. This detective was named Dalton, and he informs Ryan that they're going to be taking pictures of his feet, and so he needs to put his feet up on the table that's right next to him. Ryan at first acts very confused and doesn't really understand what's happening, but he eventually complies and he puts his feet up on the table, and by the time his feet are up there, another officer walks into the interrogation room, and he's got a camera and he's got this big kit with him, and he would begin about a 10-minute long process of photographing Ryan's feet and also swabbing Ryan's feet. During this 10-minute session, Dalton stays in the room, and so Ryan periodically asks him if he can just leave and go home, seemingly unaware of how serious this situation really was for him.
The dude's got to have a splitting headache at the same time, most likely. Oh my god. Like, I've had that kind of a headache. Although the memory of it is fleeting. Because, like, when you get hit by something and, lights go out and all that, and then there's that splitting headache you have afterwards where it's just like, it's like there's a spike that's been driven into your skull from like the front. and it sucks. And it's like someone took that spike, all right, or whatever, and they had that sucker red hot, and then they jammed it into your skull. That's what that shit feels like. And that poor guy's sitting there just going through it like Jesus.
And when Dalton would tell him, no, you can't leave, Ryan would act totally frustrated and kind of angry and upset, kind of like how a child would act if they were told they couldn't have something they really wanted to. At 5:28 a.m., after this 10-minute session is complete and they've photographed and swabbed Ryan's feet, the second officer leaves the room and Dalton shuts the door behind him, and then he walks over to the table and he grabs the chair on the other side from Ryan. He drags it out so it's closer to Ryan, and then he sits down and introduces himself. After that, he begins asking Ryan some very basic questions. He asks him to confirm his name, which he does. He asks him to confirm his date of birth and his social security number, and Ryan does both those things. And then he asks Ryan if he understands why he was there, why he was being interrogated. And Ryan says no. And so at this point,
Oh, shoot. Dude. I feel for the guy. Damn it, this sucks. He doesn't remember exactly what happened, I'm sure. He probably remembers some bits and pieces here and there. But the rest of it's just a blank, essentially. Right? Like, oh man.
Dalton says, okay, let's just stop right now. I'm going to read you your rights. And so it's at this point in the interrogation that Ryan's behavior starts to get really, really weird. After Dalton tells Ryan he needs to read him his rights, you can see Ryan doesn't compute what he's saying. He's just kind of looking blankly, and Dalton seems to pick up on that. And so he tries to make it kind of lighthearted, and he says, hey, Ryan, I'm going to read you your rights like they do on TV, like on Cops and on Law and Order and CSI, any of those crime shows. They read people their rights. That's what I'm going to do. You know what I'm talking about? And Ryan just goes, no. And Dalton's kind of confused. He's like, you haven't seen any cop show where they read people their rights? And at this, Ryan kind of changes his behavior. And suddenly he's not as robotic. He's a little bit defensive looking. And he says, oh, yeah, I have, yeah. At this, it's pretty obvious to Dalton that Ryan is lying about something that is totally insignificant, whether
Peekaboo Sue. Yeah, swelling of the brain. Yep. Poor guy.
not he's seen true crime TV shows.
I'm getting sympathy pains right now because I've been through that kind of shit. And it sucked. Thankfully, it didn't last very long, right? Maybe a few hours and then I slept it off, but still, like,
really just didn't matter at all. And there's this weird hesitation where both of them are just kind of being quiet for a minute. It's like Dalton knows he's lying about it, and Ryan just seems totally confused. And then ultimately, Dalton just decides to not key in on this kind of weird lie that Ryan has just told. Instead, he just reads Ryan his rights. And then after that, he gets back into some basic questions. The next one was, hey Ryan, what was the highest grade you achieved in school? And now at this point, Ryan is not looking at Dalton. He's looking to the far side of the room. He's got this blank expression on. And when he's asked this question, he just says, I don't know. And Dalton's like, you don't know what level grade you achieved in school? And Ryan says, no, I don't know. Eighth grade. So again, he's changed his answer fairly abruptly when he's challenged. And so Dalton is probably thinking to himself that he's lying again. But again, it's just kind of an insignificant thing, but it's building a pattern of mistrust here. It's hard for Dalton to believe that Ryan is going to be truthful if he can't even tell the truth about things that don't matter.
But for him in that moment, for Ryan in that moment, right? He's like switching in between like mental states, cognitive states. And he's switching from function fixedness to next thing, it's oh Jesus. And he's switching between them because they're all being activated by different things. Like so many things are shutting off and turning on right now. He's probably supremely confused. And on top of that, like he probably gets brief glimpses of like awareness for like maybe a split second or two, and then it shuts off to something else. Ugh.
But Dalton decides not to fixate on it. Instead, he asks a follow up question based on the fact that Ryan has said eighth grade is the highest level he achieved. And so Dalton says, okay, well, did you get your GED? A GED is a high school diploma equivalent, and it's something you would get if you did not graduate high school. And since eighth grade is below high school, then Ryan clearly did not finish high school. And so it's a natural question to ask. The answer to this question is binary. You have a GED, you don't have a GED. But Ryan's answer is anything but binary. It's totally contradictory and weird, and it really begins to show a side of Ryan that just doesn't add up. He's acting totally weird.
Do you have a GED?
I don't know.
You don't know what?
I don't know. I don't know. I just want to go home.
Oh, you're not going to go home right now.
So what?
What's the highest grade that you completed?
B?
No.
I know he doesn't. He's not really meaning to be a smartass. He probably doesn't have the ability to even do so at this moment in time. He's very literal minded, purely so, right now. But the guy asking him what's the highest grade you completed, and him saying a B. Holy shit. It's so screwed up. It's so screwed up, but it's funny. This poor kid's going through it. Jesus.
Not grade, as in letter grade. I'm asking, did you graduate high school?
No.
And the highest you went was 8th grade?
Yeah.
Do you know how to read and write, Ryan?
Yeah.
After the discussion about Ryan's education goes nowhere, Dalton again does not fixate on all the issues with his answers so far, and instead just kind of continues asking more questions. And so he begins to address Heather. He starts by asking Ryan if he has a girlfriend. Now, Dalton at this point would know that Heather, the girl who was deceased,
No. No, dude. Bob. It hurts. It hurts my skull watching this. I swear to God. I just feel it. I'm like, oh. I'm getting sympathy pains hard.
was Ryan's girlfriend because the police were asked to do the
But let me guess. He probably does not remember her, or his memory of her is not really, it's not tangible or something like that. That's my guess. It's messed up somehow.
initial welfare check on Ryan and Heather, the couple. That's something that Dawn would have relayed to police. And so Dalton knows they have a relationship, but he wants Ryan to tell him he has a relationship with Heather. So again, he asks Ryan, do you have a girlfriend? And Ryan says no, which is a lie. But Dalton goes along with it and says, okay, well, do you know a girl named Heather? And Ryan would say, yes, I do. But his description of Heather was just completely inaccurate. He said Heather was a 16 or 17-year-old girl, even though she was actually 21. And he would say her last name was Kyman. He thought. He wasn't entirely sure. He said she has nicknames and she has different names she uses, but he believes it's Kyman, even though her last name was actually Kwan. Now, Dalton, of course, is aware of these discrepancies, but again, he does not fixate on them. He just keeps on asking more questions. Dalton asks Ryan, what happened to your face? You have this huge bruise on the left side of your face. What happened? At first, Ryan says he doesn't know. But when Dalton pressed him and kept asking more and more questions about his face and how it happened, Ryan eventually would begin to open up.
What happened to your face?
I don't know.
You told the officer just a few minutes ago that someone hit you. Do you remember who hit you?
I don't know. I think it was Heather.
Why would Heather hit you?
I don't know. It was an accident. I forgot why.
Like the other police
Oh, dude. Peekaboo, his synapses are misfiring. Poor kid, this is so sad. Yes, it is. Jesus. It's so bad. This poor guy, they're looking at him, and it's clear that both of his eyes are absolutely just, right? Like I personally, if I was an officer, right? If I was a cop and I saw this guy and he's not any danger to us, he's not posing a threat or a risk, first thing I definitely want to do is get him medically checked out. I wouldn't just immediately take him into custody. I'd be like, okay, all right, your response to stimuli is a bit weird. You're like a compliant doll on two legs. You got very ferocious battle scarring of the face. And you're not responding very well to anything. Your motor functions are not working right. Your equilibrium's off. Like, all right, we need EMTs. We need paramedics here. But yeah, like that would be my first thing, right? My first thing would be like, are they medically okay? Now, if he was perfectly fine and I was an officer, I'd probably treat it differently, right? Because he's okay. But he's not, clearly. Yeah, personally, I'd go with medical first. Also, that way we can ensure that this individual will live long enough to either help us find out who did what or to give a confession. I mean, gotta look out for number one mission, right? It sounds kind of screwed up the way I put it, I guess, but it's still in everyone's best interest that they survive and they live at least long enough for like justice to be meted out.
officers involved, Dalton believed already going into this interrogation that Ryan killed Heather, that the bruise on his face was from Heather fighting back before ultimately Ryan killed her. And so for Ryan to say the mark on my face is from Heather, even though he claimed it was an accident, to Dalton, that was the same thing as Ryan saying, I killed Heather. Dalton attempted to get more specific details about the actual physical struggle that took place between Ryan and Heather, but as he asked more and more questions, he became more and more aggressive, and it seemed like Ryan picked up on it and became very defensive and started throwing out random pieces of information.
Peekaboo, that was funny. Well, I mean, I don't try. Maybe I do. I'm not really sure.
And much of which seemed untrue.
Well, thank you.
Like he suggested there was at least 2 or 3 other people that were in the house on the night that Heather got killed, but it's unclear if these people were real or if they were actually ever there. And it just seemed like Ryan was kind of panicking and just kind of saying all sorts of random things. And so at some point, Dalton just wants to focus the conversation because he feels like it's getting totally out of hand. And so he just stops Ryan and he says, Ryan, there is a dead girl in your house and I need information.
Hey, Ryan?
Huh? Huh?
There's a dead girl in your living room.
She's dead?
Yes.
Heather?
I don't know. I want to know what happened in your house last night.
The girl on the couch is dead?
I don't know if she's on the couch. She's dead.
The interesting thing about Ryan's reaction to being told by Dalton for the first time in the interrogation that there was a dead girl in his house is Ryan reacted with genuine surprise. It's the only time in the entire interrogation start to finish where Ryan sits forward in his chair, he kind of perks up, and he seems relatively normal. He's not acting confused and kind of bizarre. It's like he's really dialed in, as if he had not heard this before, that he didn't know Heather was dead, and he's now for the first time being told, and it shocked his system. But just seconds after he sits forward and seems really engaged, he goes back to kind of being totally bizarre, and he also suddenly had this really elaborate story about what happened to Heather, even though just seconds ago, it seemed like he had just learned about it, so it didn't
God damn, I feel this so much. I hate it. I hate it so much. but I can't look away.
Really make any sense that he would have a story so readily available for something he seemed to not know anything about. And of course, like all of his other answers, his story he gave was full of contradictions and holes and was just totally unbelievable.
Well, these people came over, Richie and his dad, with shooting arrow, bow, and darts. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
They hit me and her with those. That's it.
They hit you and they hit you?
Yeah.
Now it's Richie that hit you, not Heather?
No, Richie and his dad.
Richie and his dad. They hit you.
Yes.
Why?
Because they're trying to get their stuff. I don't know why.
And they had some kind of bow and arrows?
Mm-hmm. They each had 2 revolvers and they didn't let off any shells.
Okay, you just said they had bow and arrows. Now they have revolvers?
That's what I meant. They had revolvers.
They have revolvers.
Yes.
And then what happened?
And then they shot us with those.
Following this exchange, Ryan
Peekaboo Sue, exactly. Some cops just don't care anymore or never did. Well, I'll challenge you on that. Because I've been through the same thing as police overseas. Except I would either be assisting law enforcement or I'd be conducting some kind of mission. The amount of shit someone has to go through to simply deliver some food to a freaking schoolhouse that was agreed to contractually. And there's an angry mob in your way for some reason that you cannot make sense of or understand, because nothing they say about any of it makes any sense or you can understand. So, I'm just saying, after you've had the 1000th interaction with your average person and they're nothing but a piece of shit to you, I'm sorry, but expecting them to care after that much crap, I think is very unrealistic. That's what I think it is. Now, I understand, why somebody would think, like they don't care, they never did. Because in some cases, that's what it is. But in other cases, that's also what it is. I mean, your average person is what? Filthy, nasty, degenerate, reprobate. And just wants to stir up trouble and cause shit. You're not my real dad. Stop telling me not to go around and hitting some females in the face or something like that. You're not my dad, like that's what those people act like. I swear to God. Right? And the behavior of these people doesn't change no matter where in the world you encounter them. Right? Street and gutter trash is street and gutter trash, no matter where you go. Now imagine dealing with that like 24/7, 365, for years on end. People getting in your face, spitting on you, hitting you with shit, throwing things at you all the time. Right? Drive-by shooting just because they think it's funny. And then you have to go chase them down. Like, I mean, I'm just saying. They go through too much shit to not become very hardened to what they do. I swear to God. Now, that being said, we did have a recent phenomenon called defund the police. When you defund police, what they were doing, right? Because we see this in Portland and pretty much all of Oregon and Washington now. The new police departments that all got defunded, so all the good cops left, they were replaced by the same people that necessitated their presence in the first place. So I mean, that's even more damning about the whole thing, right? But yeah, like I was saying before, like some cops just don't care or never did. I mean, that's true, but there's two different sides to it. Like I said, hopefully I explained that as clearly and succinctly as possible. Anyway, that being said, let's continue with this really screwed up interrogation.
Ryan would change his story again and would say, actually, they didn't shoot me, they just shot Heather, they put me in a sleeper hold. But when Dalton asked him, what do you mean sleeper hold? Ryan said, oh, I don't know what a sleeper hold is. And then eventually Ryan would actually just ditch the sleeper hold narrative and go back to the Richie and his father. They came in and they shot both of us. At this point, Ryan's story has become so convoluted and it's changed so many times that it's just totally unbelievable. And so Dalton, who was doing his best to kind of go along with Ryan's story, at this point just can't even pretend anymore. He cannot pretend that he's following this story. It doesn't make any sense.
You're telling me you're all over the board here, number one. You're saying bows and arrows, you're saying revolvers, and you're saying some other thing, and you're saying they shot you in the eye. Okay? They shot you with a revolver in your eye.
Yes. And that's
Is it a BB gun?
No, it was a real gun, man. It was just a
If
revolver.
they shot you in the eye with a revolver, you wouldn't be talking to me right now.
How do you know?
It was most likely you'd be dead.
That's what I thought too, man. I really don't know.
So you got shot first,
Uh-huh.
and what happened? Did you fall to the ground?
Yeah, I was trying to get up and I couldn't. I don't
Okay.
know.
And then she got shot?
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
Nothing.
Did you call 911? Did you see if she was alive?
She was sleeping still, and that's it. I just let her sleep.
She got shot in the side of the face and you let her sleep?
Yes.
This does not make sense, Ryan.
After this exchange, Dalton just goes full bad cop on Ryan, openly accusing him of shooting and killing Heather.
Peekaboo, yeah, that's true, but I know that there's more good cops than bad cops. Well, I mean, if you go regionally, sure. But the fact of the matter is that there's way too many, right? Because the fact of the matter is, this is how it works. We don't like it, but this is the reality. If you have 9 good cops and 1 bad cop, if that 1 bad cop is not gone as soon as you know he's a bad cop, then you have 10 bad cops. That's the that's the formulation there. That's how that works. And I mean, same thing with mobs. If you have a peaceful protest of 100 people, but 20 of them are dispersed among the crowd, throwing bottles and rocks and shooting at the cops, well, then it's not a peaceful protest. It's a violent mob. You get what I mean? If elements do not purge those elements from amongst their midst, they are allowing it. They're enabling it, right? It's like the idea that people have where they're like, "Oh, I'm a good person." They declare it so, right? And they're like, "Look, I don't even harm a fly." Right? But they stand by and do nothing while something happens to their neighbor. So, I mean, this could go on and on and on, but I mean, I probably made the point. The fact of the matter is that if you are not standing in the way of evil, that means you had to make a decision to where you enabled it. That's how that works. That's reality. I mean, not sure how much further I could drill down on it, honestly. It gets pretty dour pretty quick. But I mean, that's just always how it's worked, right? That's why it seems like the greatest amount of things are accomplished by so few. Because it's that so few who, by the permission of the majority, can take such actions. That's how that's always worked in history. That being said, let's continue.
And Ryan just continues to say he doesn't know anything, that he didn't do it, and his answers are just totally nonsensical and contradictory, and nothing is making sense. And so finally, at 5:52 a.m., roughly 45 minutes into this interrogation, Dalton is just at a loss. He does not know how to handle Ryan, because even though he really believes he did it, nothing Ryan has said has incriminated him, because nothing Ryan has said makes any sense. And so he's sitting there kind of thinking what he's going to do next. And then Dalton notices something.
That makes me remember that the insanity plea exists. Or like in northern New York, where you have like 3 minutes of madness or something like that. Where a buddy of mine, he found that out the hard way, because we got home from a mission and he found another guy in his house in his wife's bed. Yep, that's pretty much all military wives. Don't believe otherwise. The numbers are staggering. And so what he did was he went back downstairs. He grabbed his pick, like his pickaxe from the garage, removed the head. Okay, he took the head off of a pickaxe, took the handle upstairs, and beat them both black and blue. My God. Anyway, I had to be the one to go pick him up out of jail. But yeah, freaking, they deserved it. He almost actually ended them both. And I would have been like, you know what? I don't blame you. I'll post your bail. Right? They would have deserved it. Anyway, that being said, he was able to get a non-guilty verdict because he pled 3 minutes of madness because it was part of the legal defense or whatever. I was like, what? Or it was something like that. This is decades ago, but yeah, it was. I was like, damn.
He notices something on Ryan's face. And he tells Ryan to come closer. He needs to look at it.
Let me see your nose. Put your legs down. Put your legs down. Bring your face closer.
Oh, my head hurts.
Okay. Yeah, be right back.
What Dalton had...
And he's slowly dying while he sits there, too. Oh.
finally just discovered were 4 bullet holes in Ryan's face and head. Ryan had committed no crime. He was a victim the same way Heather was a victim, but somehow Ryan had survived the attack. On December 23rd, so 2 days before the welfare check, 2 men attempted to break into Ryan and Heather's house. They were 23-year-old Richie Carver and his 54-year-old father, Larry Carver, the same Richie and Richie's father that Ryan had mentioned during the interrogation. They were there because of an altercation that had occurred between Richie and the couple about a month earlier. During that time, Richie was actually living with Ryan and Heather, but apparently he began hitting on Heather, and Heather told Ryan, and Ryan got really mad about it, and Ryan and Richie got in this big fight, and ultimately Ryan kicks Richie out of the house. Now, this totally infuriates Richie and is very embarrassing for Richie, and so right away he begins plotting his revenge. And so on December 23rd, Richie and his father, they were there to carry out this revenge plot. When the father and son got to the back of Ryan and Heather's house, Ryan saw them at the back door through the glass door that was near their kitchen, and he ran over to try to stop them from getting inside, but Richie and Larry managed to barely get open the door, and Richie reached in with his hand, which was carrying a gun, and he shot Ryan point blank twice in the face. The first bullet went in through his nose and then out the other side of his nose, so that's the first 2 bullet holes. And then that bullet traveled back into his head through his left eye into his brain where it got lodged. And along along with the bullet, 6 pieces of his skull that broke off from this bullet went inside of his brain as well. So that's the first 3 bullet holes. And then the second bullet that was fired into Ryan's head hit the side of his head. It did not penetrate into his skull. So the bullet didn't lodge anywhere inside of his brain. However, it did break off a piece of his skull. And so that was the 4th bullet hole. Ryan dropped to the ground. He was unconscious. They assumed he was dead. They managed to force the door the rest of the way open. They stepped inside. They stepped over Ryan's body, and they walked into the living room where Heather was cowering on the sofa, and Richie just immediately walked up, put a gun to her head, and fired a single shot. After she had fallen to the ground, the 2 men stole some things in the house and then fled the scene. They would ultimately get caught, and they're both currently serving life sentences. It's
Good thing they got caught, but god damn. Peekaboo Sue. Cause the one bad cop corrupts the good cops, or because the public sees that one bad cop and now thinks all the cops are bad? Well, you know, who is it that you're talking about when it's the public? Your average, right? Which is an 85 IQ. So they see one bad cop. They can't do abstract thinking or critical thinking. They can't think any level above themselves, right? They're stuck in animal mode, period. And so they see one bad cop. So in their brain, they go, oh, one bad cop, all bad cop. Monkey see, monkey think. That's about it. That's as far as that goes. That's your average person today. Now, that's not what I'm talking about, but that is the public perception. That's how these things work. What it means by that is that it's the same concept as opening the door for someone who said they're going to murder you when you open the door. It's like what I said earlier, right? If you're not standing in the way of evil, right, or taking any action against it, you are enabling, giving permission to, and allowing it. That's how that works. So, yeah, like, you know, neutralities, fence sitting, and all of that. That's why that's always been a bad thing. Because being neutral is the same as being on the evil side. Period. Reality. That's just how it is. That's it. That's all. Peekaboo Sue. Oh shit. Finally notices. Yes, finally. Takes a while. Anyway, yeah, let's get back to it.
Believed Heather died instantly from her gunshot wound, but Ryan didn't. At some point, maybe a couple of hours after he was shot, he woke up, but he had severe brain damage and he wouldn't have known what was going on. He didn't really know what happened, and he saw his girlfriend Heather lying on the couch, but he thought she was just sleeping, and so he too went to his bedroom and he fell asleep. But the next morning, he woke up and he still would have had no idea what was going on, and he spent the day on the 24th just kind of wandering around his house with his girlfriend lying dead on the couch. And so after a full day of just kind of mindlessly walking around his house, he went back to bed, and then he got up on Christmas Day on the 25th and spent another day just kind of walking about his house with his girlfriend, who he believed was sleeping, but really she was dead. And so finally the welfare check is called in, the police show up, and as soon as they see Ryan, they jumped to conclusions that he must have killed Heather, and it kind of dictated the way they treated him. Had they believed he was a victim, they might have sought medical attention for the wound on his face, but again, jumping to conclusions and assuming he was the killer, they figured that bruise on his face was from the woman fighting back. She had struck him before he had savagely killed her. And so they didn't give him any medical care. Instead, they put him out in the cop car out front of the property, and he sat there with no medical intervention for 6 hours. And during those 6 hours, literally every second that went by, there was irreversible brain damage being caused because he had all this bleeding inside of his head that was causing brain damage. And so the clock was ticking as soon as they found him, and for hours and hours and hours, he got no care and was just getting worse and worse and worse. And so finally, he goes to the police station, and again, they do not give him any medical care. Instead, they interrogate him for almost 2 hours, even though he has 4 bullet holes on his face that apparently no one noticed or no one took seriously. But regardless, he spent those almost 2 more hours in the interrogation room, where every second that's going by, his brain is getting more and more destroyed, irreparably destroyed. And then finally, at the end of the interrogation, Dalton, who's probably thinking to himself, what is wrong with this guy? His answers don't make any sense. He's all over the place. And that's when he stepped back from looking for a way to convict this guy and noticed the holes on his face, specifically the hole in his nose. And that's when he called him forward and he looked at his face and he realized a huge mistake had been made, and he called an ambulance.
Oh, brother. That sucks. I mean, if he had gotten medical attention much earlier, there's a potential chance he could have survived. But he would have been on some kind of home or hospice care the rest of his existence. I don't know, with family members or in a manor. He would not have been able to survive on his own. Oh, fuck, dude. Peekaboo Sue. That's crazy how you initially survived being shot in the face. Yeah. Right? Like, I've survived some impossible stuff, but I've never been shot in the, like, straight in the face. I had a bullet almost skip off my cheek, but that was it. Getting shot in the head, like, I've known people that happened to, and they're all dead. Shoot, dude.
Here is a clip of...
Then again, all of them got hit by bigger caliber bullets. I'm guessing this was like 9 or below. Maybe 380. 22 at the very least. A 22 caliber. Yeah, you can end people with a 22 caliber. I've heard it called the assassin gun, because you could just cover it with a pillow. It's already pretty quiet for a round. Even the Super Hornet rounds, like, they're crazy. They got the same ballistics almost as a 9mm. But yeah, it is crazy.
The fire department, who arrived ahead of the ambulance in the interrogation room, learning about what's happened to Ryan as they wait for the ambulance.
Hi guys. Hey guys. Captain, you're not going to believe this one.
I can't believe it either.
You're right. I've already heard the story. I can't believe it. This is just my observations that this might be an entrance, this might be an exit, this might be into his eye. And he's acting like he has a serious head injury, which would make sense.
Ryan was ultimately rushed to the hospital, where he would undergo emergency surgery that would save his life, but it would come at a great cost. They not only had to remove a large portion of his brain, but they also had to remove both of his eyes. Now, it should be noted that at least one other source says he only had his left eye removed, but regardless, after this surgery, Ryan was no longer independent. He had so much brain damage, he couldn't take care of himself, and so he had to move back in with his parents, who became his full-time caretakers. And then 10 years later, Ryan would die from a seizure that was directly connected to the injuries he sustained from that attack, and it's connected to the lack of care he received in those first critical 8 hours after the police found him. The Phoenix Police Department, after this mishandling of Ryan's case went public, they did an internal investigation, but no one was ever disciplined, at least not publicly. As for Ryan's family, they certainly could have filed a lawsuit against the Phoenix Police Department, but they chose not to. They said the only thing we want is our son back, and a lawsuit will not give us that. So that's gonna do it, guys.
Man. I mean, part of this is on the police, right? They got complacent. You know, they believed their own sauce. They were practicing extreme confirmation bias. But he had already been alone for a couple days. So he'd already been, I mean, sure, the damage was getting worse, that's for sure. But Peekaboo Sue. Damn, just wandering around aimlessly. And it was near Christmas, wasn't it? I don't know.
If you got something out of today's episode and you haven't done this already, please offer to make the like button a sandwich of their choosing. But when you make it, make sure you construct it between two very thin, stale rye bread heels. Heather Kwan was. In 2006, Heather Kwan was a 21-year-old college student living in the small time with under things. He was a huge. Instead of driving over to their property himself, the couple had made plans to visit Ryan Waller, desperately needed her help. She lived in a rental home with her boyfriend. It's also why she aspired to go to law school and become a
I don't know if he gives an exact date.
defense lawyer, because she loved the idea of professionally helping people that desperately needed her help. She lived in a rental home with her boyfriend, who was 18 years old. His name was Ryan Waller, and amongst other things, he was a huge gun enthusiast and a student. That year, the couple had made plans to visit Ryan's father, Don, on Christmas Day, so on December.
Yep, this was around Christmas. Fug. This was around Christmas. Peekaboo Sue. My thoughts would be more like, hello, Mr. Cop Man. Didn't you notice the bullet holes in his face? Well, I don't know. I mean, I've savagely brutalized people myself. And, you know, when you really beat on someone's face, right, like real good, it almost looks like, you know, like some parts almost look like a really overdone sausage. And then some parts will look like ground beef that's been left out, so it's got that purple like freezer burn. Depending on how savagely you beat them. I've done it plenty of times. And you know what? It would be hard to notice precisely right off the bat if you look at somebody if it's not just, you know, skin that's been like ripped open and shit from like someone brutalizing someone else. I mean, let me see if I can find some pictures of it. Brutalized face pictures. Can you tell right here what happened? I mean, this isn't very bad. This is like a minor fight thing, and this is more cosmetic makeup than anything else. Or take something like that. Like, would you ever guess something that would be a bullet hole right there? Or let's see. Let's see if we can find a better one. Oh, it starts getting into like the performative bull now. Most of it's like cosmetics or whatever, but let's see. What is the filters on? Safe search is off. I'm not getting very good pictures here. But do you know what I mean? Where's the yeah, most of it's performative crap. Find elsewhere. Google maybe. Shoot. I mean, that's pretty bad. I mean, this guy got beat pretty bad. But looking at something like that, you wouldn't guess a bullet went through there. Or, for all you know, the little crack right here is bleeding. Could be from a bullet or not. I mean, here's another one. This guy got brutalized. Right? But right off the bat, does it look like he got shot in the face? I mean, look at that. See what I mean? But yeah, freaking although I've done much worse to somebody. But yeah, it'd be pretty tough to judge whether or not like someone got shot in the face or they just got brutalized, you know what I mean? That's why I'm not too harsh on the cops. But yeah, holy shiza. Poor kid though. Freaking A, poor kid. If that was my son, I'd probably be seeing red for eternity or something.